5 seconds. That's how long the kiss lasted. 5 seconds that tasted like danger, desperation, and the kind of recklessness that only comes from a woman with nothing left to lose. Nora Davis didn't kiss a stranger in a dark alley because she wanted him. She kissed him because she was running from a man who'd spent 20 years breaking her down. And in those 5 seconds, she realized something terrifying. The stranger in the alley looked like trouble. And trouble felt exactly like freedom. 24 hours earlier. The walls were closing in. Nora Davis stood in the master bathroom of her stepmother's Beverly Hills mansion, gripping the marble countertop until her knuckles turned white. The mirror reflected a woman she barely recognized, petite frame drowning in a cream silk dress her stepmother had chosen, dark curls tamed into submission, brown eyes wide with a fear she'd learned to hide. Tonight was the engagement party. Her engagement party. To Elliot Harrington. The name alone made her stomach turn. She could still remember being 9 years old, the way he'd cornered her at a garden party and pulled her pigtails until she cried. How he'd whispered that she was ugly, that nobody wanted her, that she should be grateful anyone looked at her twice. He was 12 then, old enough to know cruelty, young enough to perfect it. 20 years later, he'd perfected it into an art form. Nora. Vivian's shrill voice cut through the bathroom door. The guests are arriving. Get yourself together. Nora's stepmother had never called her by any term of endearment. Not daughter, not dear, certainly not sweetheart. Just Nora, delivered like an accusation. Coming, Nora called back, her voice steadier than she felt. Downstairs, the house glittered with Los Angeles wealth. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across imported Italian marble. Women in designer gowns air-kissed each other, while men in $1,000 suits discussed stock portfolios and summer homes in the Hamptons. Everyone smiled. Everyone lied. Nora descended the curved staircase, one hand on the railing for balance. The dress's hem whispered against each step. There she is. Elliot's voice rang out, smooth as aged whiskey and twice as poisonous. My beautiful bride-to-be. He stood at the bottom of the stairs, all white teeth and practiced charm. Blonde hair perfectly styled, blue eyes cold despite the warmth of his smile. He'd grown into his features, tall, athletic, the kind of handsome that photographed well for charity galas and society pages. No one else saw the calculation in his eyes. The way his smile never reached them. The possessive curl of his fingers when he took her hand. Elliot, she managed, letting him pull her close for the benefit of their audience. You look perfect, he murmured against her ear, his breath hot on her skin. Like you're mine already. His hand tightened on her waist, too tight, just shy of painful. A reminder. A warning. The evening blurred into a nightmare of champagne toasts and congratulations. Vivian held court, basking in the attention, while Nora's stepsister Lila pouted in the corner, furious that someone else was the center of attention for once. You're so lucky, one of Vivian's friends gushed. Elliot is such a catch. So charming. So generous with his time, another added. All that charity work. If only they knew. If only anyone knew. Elliot found her again an hour later, backing her into the darkened conservatory. The glass walls reflected the party lights, turning them into a cage of glittering bars. Having fun. His voice was silk over steel. Yes, she lied. Liar. He stepped closer, backing her against a marble column. But that's okay. You'll learn to enjoy it. You'll learn to enjoy everything I tell you to enjoy. His hand came up to her throat, not squeezing, just resting there. A promise. I've waited a long time for this, he whispered. For you. Do you remember what I used to tell you when we were kids? Nora's breath caught. Yes, she remembered. She remembered every word. Nobody else will ever want you, he continued, his thumb stroking the pulse point in her neck. But I do. Lucky girl. She tried to speak, but her voice had abandoned her. Her body shook, fear, rage, helplessness warring inside her chest. There you are. Lila's voice broke the moment. She stood in the conservatory doorway, eyebrow raised. Mum wants photos. Elliot stepped back smoothly, his expression shifting to pleasant neutrality. Of course. Can't keep the photographer waiting. He walked away, leaving Nora trembling against the column. Later, much later, When the party had finally ended and the last guest had gone, Nora sat on the edge of her bed still wearing the cream dress. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. Her phone buzzed. A text from her friend Maya, "Emergency girls' night tomorrow. No excuses. You need this." Nora stared at the message for a long moment. Then she typed back, "Okay." What did she have to lose? Her life was already over. The engagement would become a wedding. The wedding would become a marriage. The marriage would become a cage she'd never escape. Unless something changed. The next evening, Maya and their friend Jen dragged Nora to a club in downtown Los Angeles. The kind of place that pulsed with bass-heavy music and bodies pressed together in the semi-darkness. Colored lights strobed across sweat-slicked skin. The air tasted like alcohol and bad decisions. "You need to let loose," Maya shouted over the music, pressing a drink into Nora's hand. "Forget about everything for one night." Nora drank. Then drank again. The alcohol burned going down but numbed everything else. She danced until her feet hurt, until the music drowned out the voice in her head telling her she was trapped, trapped, trapped. But eventually the club felt too hot, too loud, too crowded. She stumbled outside into the cool Los Angeles night, her head spinning, her vision blurred at the edges. The alley behind the club was quieter, darker. She leaned against the brick wall, closing her eyes, trying to breathe through the alcohol haze and the crushing weight of her life. That's when she felt it, the weight of someone's gaze. She opened her eyes and saw him. He was leaning against the opposite wall, dressed entirely in black, black suit, black shirt, black tie that hung loose around his throat. Tall enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Broad shoulders, muscular frame that the expensive fabric did nothing to hide. Tattoos crept up from his collar, dark ink against golden skin, disappearing into his hairline. But it was his face that stole her breath. Sharp jaw, high cheekbones, full lips set in a hard line. Eyes so dark they looked black in the dim light, watching her with an intensity that should have frightened her but somehow didn't. His hair was pushed back from his forehead. He was dangerously, devastatingly beautiful. The kind of beautiful that came with warnings. The kind of beautiful that ruins lives. He didn't move. Didn't speak. Just watched her with those depthless eyes. The alcohol made her bold. The desperation made her reckless. Nora pushed off the wall and crossed the alley. Each step felt like walking toward a cliff edge, knowing she was going to jump. Her heels clicked against the pavement. He didn't move, but his gaze tracked her every movement like a predator watching prey. She stopped in front of him, close enough to smell his cologne, dark wood, quiet smoke, refined, unmistakably costly. Close enough to see the way his jaw tightened, the only sign he wasn't as unaffected as he appeared. "Hi," she breathed. He said nothing. But his eyes, gosh, his eyes dropped to her mouth. "I need your help," she said, the words tumbling out too fast, too desperate. "I need." She couldn't finish. Couldn't explain the impossible thing she was about to ask. So instead, she reached up, cupped his face in both hands, and kissed him. For one heartbeat, he was stone beneath her touch. Immovable. Unresponsive. Then he moved. One of his hands came up to the back of her neck, long fingers threading through her curls. The other wrapped around her waist, pulling her flush against him. He kissed her back with a controlled intensity that made her knees weak, deep, thorough, devastating. His tongue swept into her mouth and she tasted mint and something darker, more addictive. She'd never been kissed like this. Like she was something precious and profane all at once. Like he was claiming her and worshipping her in the same breath. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. His thumb stroked the side of her neck, right over her racing pulse. "Marry me," she whispered against his lips. "Please. I need someone to," her voice broke. "Save me." His eyes searched hers. She waited for him to laugh, to push her away, to tell her she was drunk and crazy. Instead, he asked in a voice like smoke and sin, "What's your name?" "Nora. Nora Davis." "I'm June Woo." His thumb traced her jawline. "Jang June Woo." She didn't recognize the name. She should have. Later she would realize that ignorance had saved her, because if she'd known who he was, she never would have had the courage to kiss him. "You're drunk," he observed, though there was no judgment in his tone. Yes. You're serious? Yes. Tears pricked her eyes. I'm engaged to a monster. My stepmother arranged it. I can't breathe anymore. I can't, a sob caught in her throat. I'm trapped. Something flickered in his dark eyes. Understanding, maybe. Or recognition. My grandmother is dying, he said quietly. Her last wish is to see me settled. Married. Nora blinked, trying to process through the alcohol haze. So you need a wife. His lips quirked, not quite a smile, but close. Even though I've spent my whole life avoiding marriage. She frowned. Why? His gaze didn't waver. Women complicate things. They distract. They demand pieces of you I don't give. A beat. I wasn't interested. Her breath hitched. But now? Now, he said, voice low, steady, you need a way out. And I need a bride my grandmother will accept. His eyes swept over her, assessing, decisive. Our problems solve each other. Yes, she breathed. He studied her for a long moment. She felt stripped bare under that gaze, every fear and desperate hope laid open. Come with me, he said finally, taking her hand. His hand was warm, rough with calluses, and completely engulfed hers. He led her to a car parked at the mouth of the alley, a sleek black Mercedes with a price tag she didn't even want to imagine. He opened the passenger door for her, waited until she was settled, then rounded to the driver's side with economical grace. Where are we going? She asked as he pulled into traffic. Vegas. Vegas, she repeated, almost laughing. It was absurd. Insane. Perfect. The city lights blurred past the windows as they drove through Los Angeles, then out onto the highway. The dashboard glowed soft blue in the darkness. Junwoo drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the console between them. His profile was all sharp lines and shadows. Tell me, he said after a while, his voice cutting through the hum of the engine. This monster you're engaged to. Does he hurt you? Nora swallowed hard. Not physically. Not yet. But he will. I know he will. Silence settled between them, heavy, decisive. Junwoo nodded once, as if that confirmed something he'd already suspected. Then he flicked on the turn signal and changed lanes. We're not driving to Vegas, he said. Nora blinked. Then where are we going? The airport. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. 20 minutes later, they pulled into a private hangar lit by floodlights. A sleek black jet waited on the tarmac, engines humming, stairs already lowered as if the plane had been expecting them. Nora stared. This is yours. Junwoo placed a hand at the small of her back, guiding her toward it. I don't fly commercial. What do you do? She asked. For work, I mean. Business, he said, which was no answer at all. Inside, the cabin was quiet, dimly lit, impossibly luxurious. She barely had time to sit before the jet lifted off, Los Angeles shrinking beneath them. During the flight, Nora felt herself drifting, exhaustion and alcohol pulling her under. At some point, she leaned her head against the window, then against Junwoo's shoulder. He didn't pull away. His shoulder was solid, warm, safe. Less than an hour later, they touched down in Las Vegas. She woke to find Junwoo watching her, his expression unreadable. Last chance to change your mind, he said. Nora thought of Elliot. Of Vivian. Of the cage waiting for her back home. I'm sure, she said. The desert night wrapped around them as they stepped onto the tarmac, the strip glowing in the distance like a neon promise. Junwoo's hand found the small of her back again, steady, certain, claiming. Come, he said. We finish this tonight. The chapel was small, tacky in that quintessentially Vegas way, plastic flowers, an Elvis impersonator as witness, bad carpet that had seen better decades. But when Junwoo took her hand and slid a simple gold band onto her finger, when he lifted her chin and kissed her with witnesses watching, none of the tackiness mattered. I now pronounce you husband and wife, the officiant declared. Husband and wife. Nora Davis was now Nora Jang. She'd married a complete stranger. They spent the night in a hotel suite that was all marble and glass and unnecessary opulence. Junwoo ordered room service, food she couldn't eat because her stomach was churning with nerves and residual alcohol. He sat across from her at the small dining table, jacket discarded, tie gone, shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal more tattoos down his forearms. "Tell me about your grandmother," Nora said, desperate to fill the silence. His expression softened, barely, but enough to notice. "She raised me. After my parents died. She's everything." "I'm sorry," Nora whispered. "Don't be." He poured her water, pushed the glass across the table. "This arrangement benefits us both." "Right. Arrangement." She took a sip, trying to ignore how her hand shook. "So what now?" "Now you sleep. Tomorrow we go back to LA." He stood, moving toward the bedroom. "You take the bed. I'll take the couch." "You don't have to." "I do." His eyes met hers, dark and certain. "You're scared enough already. I won't add to it." Something in her chest cracked open at that, at the unexpected gentleness from this dangerous, beautiful man. The next morning, Nora woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the reality of what she'd done crashing over her like a wave. The gold band on her finger felt heavy, foreign. She was married. To a stranger. A stranger she'd kissed in an alley and begged to save her. Panic clawed up her throat. She found Jun-woo in the living area, already dressed in fresh clothes, black slacks, black button-down, looking like sin incarnate. He was on his phone, speaking Korean in a voice that sent shivers down her spine. When he saw her, he ended the call. "Good morning," he said. "This is crazy," she blurted. We need to get it annulled. This was a mistake. I was drunk and..." No. He crossed to her in 3 strides, grasping her left hand and holding it up so the ring caught the light. "You asked me to save you. I don't break promises. But you don't even know me." "I know enough." His thumb brushed over her knuckles. "I know you're terrified. I know you're trapped. I know you needed a way out badly enough to kiss a stranger and propose marriage." She tried to pull her hand back, but he held firm, not hurting, just holding. "Who are you?" she whispered. "Really?" Jun-woo didn't move. Didn't blink. But something in the room tightened, like the air itself was holding its breath. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, steady. "You're asking a dangerous question." Her pulse kicked, but she didn't look away. He studied her for a long moment, as if weighing what she could handle, and what he was willing to give. "Then, I lead a family you don't want to cross." He stepped closer, slow enough to give her time to stop him. She didn't. "There are people in this city who answer to me," he said quietly. "And there are people who would kill to take what I have." Not a boast. Not a threat. Just truth, stripped bare. He didn't pace. He didn't dramatize. He simply existed in that space, calm, lethal, unshakably in control. "I run things that don't make the news," he continued. "Businesses that stay clean on paper because I make them clean." Her breath caught. He watched her reaction, unreadable. "That's all you need to know for now." A beat. "The rest, you'll learn when you're ready." He didn't tell her everything. He didn't have to. The weight of what he didn't say filled the room more than any confession ever could. Nora should have run. Should have screamed. Should have done anything except sit there staring at him with her heart pounding and her mouth dry. "You're a criminal," she managed. "Dangerous," he corrected softly. "There's a difference." "And I just married you." "Yes." He leaned back against the desk, all casual power. "Does that change what you're running from? Does that make Elliot Harrington any less of a monster?" It didn't. And she hated how true that was. "I'm the wife of a mafia boss," she said, testing the words. They sounded absurd. Impossible. Jun-woo's gaze didn't waver. "If that's the word you want to use," he said quietly. "What matters is this: you're protected. No one touches what's mine." What's mine? The possessiveness in those words should have terrified her. Instead, heat pooled low in her belly. Returning to Los Angeles felt like walking into a minefield blindfolded. Jun-woo drove her straight to Vivian's mansion, the house that had never felt like home. His car looked obscenely expensive parked in the circular driveway, black and predatory among the silver Mercedes and white Range Rovers of the neighborhood. "Ready?" he asked, those dark eyes assessing her. "No." But she got out of the car anyway. Junwoo came around and took her hand, a simple gesture that felt like armor. Together, they walked to the front door. Vivian answered on the third knock, her face already arranged in disapproval. She was perfectly put together as always, tailored dress, salon fresh hair, makeup done with high-end products most people only window shop. "Where have you been?" she snapped at Nora. "Elliot's been calling. You disappeared from that club without telling anyone." Her gaze cut to Junwoo and she froze. Something flickered across her face, shock, then calculation, then fear. "Who is this?" "My husband," Nora said, surprised by how steady her voice was. "Junwoo, this is my stepmother, Vivian." The color drained from Vivian's face. "Husband? You're joking." "We were married yesterday," Junwoo said smoothly. His voice was pleasant, almost friendly. But there was steel underneath. "In Las Vegas. All very legal, I assure you." "This is Nora, you can't," Vivian sputtered. "You're engaged to Elliot." "I was," Nora said. Past tense. Lila appeared in the foyer, drawn by the commotion. Her eyes went wide when she saw Junwoo, not with fear like Vivian, but with poorly concealed want. Nora saw her sister look him up and down, saw the jealousy flash across her pretty face. "Holy shit," Lila breathed. "You married him?" "Lila, language." Vivian hissed. Then to Junwoo, "I don't know who you think you are, but—" "I know exactly who I am," Junwoo interrupted gently. The gentleness was somehow more threatening than if he'd shouted. "The question is, do you?" Vivian's face went from pale to gray. Recognition. Of course she knew him, everyone in her circles whispered about the Jiang shipping conglomerate. "I'm here to collect my wife's belongings," Junwoo continued. "She'll be living with me from now on." "You can't just—" "I can." He smiled then, a beautiful, terrible thing. "And I am." Vivian stepped back from the door like he'd struck her. Nora packed her things in a daze, clothes, books, a few sentimental items that had belonged to her father before he died, and left her to Vivian's mercy. The bedroom that had been hers for 20 years felt like a stranger's now. When she came back downstairs, suitcase in hand, Elliot was there. He stood in the foyer with Vivian, his face mottled with rage. "You married him?" he snarled when he saw Nora. "You seriously married?" Junwoo moved so fast Nora barely saw it. One moment he was beside her, the next he was between her and Elliot, his body a wall of controlled violence. "Finish that sentence," Junwoo said softly, "and see what happens." Elliot was tall, athletic, used to being the most dangerous man in any room. But standing there in front of Junwoo, he looked small. Weak. "You don't know what you've done," Elliot said, but his voice shook. "She's mine. The engagement is over." Junwoo's smile was all teeth. "And if you come near my wife again, if you so much as speak her name, I will end you." It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Junwoo took Nora's suitcase in one hand and her hand in the other, and they walked out of that house together. She didn't look back. Junwoo's home was in the Hollywood Hills, a modern masterpiece of glass and steel that seemed to float above the city. Every room had a view of Los Angeles sprawling below, glittering like a jewelry box. "This is—" Nora trailed off, overwhelmed. "Home," Junwoo finished. "You're home now." He showed her to the master suite, all white linens and dark wood, masculine but not cold. The bathroom was marble and chrome, the closet already half empty for her things. "I'll take one of the guest rooms," he said. "Unless you want me here." The offer hung between them, heavy with implications. "I don't know what I want," Nora admitted. Junwoo nodded. "Then we wait until you do." Over the next few days, Nora learned what it meant to be Junwoo's wife. Men in dark suits appeared at the house, his security, his employees, his soldiers. They treated her with careful respect that bordered on reverence. Junwoo introduced her to them without hesitation. "This is Nora. My wife. She's off limits to everyone." The message was clear. Anyone who touched her was finished. He assigned 2 guards to shadow her whenever she left the house. At first, it felt suffocating, just another cage. But then she realized the difference. These men didn't tell her where she could or couldn't go. They simply followed. Protected. Junwoo worked from home most days, ensconced in his office making phone calls in Korean, English, and what sounded like Mandarin. But every evening, he found her. Asked about her day. Shared dinner with her even though she knew he had 1,000 more important things to do. Tell me about your grandmother, Nora said one night over takeout Chinese. He looked up from his lo mein, surprise flickering across his face. What do you want to know? Everything, she said. I'm your wife. I should meet her. Something softened in his dark eyes. She's in a care facility in Koreatown. Cancer. Stage 4. I'm so sorry. She raised me to be strong, Junwoo said quietly. To be ruthless when necessary. To never show weakness. He set down his chopsticks. But she also taught me to protect what matters. To honor my word. To choose loyalty over everything else. She sounds incredible. She is. A smile ghosted across his lips. She'll like you. How do you know? Because, he said, reaching across the table to cover her hand with his, you're brave enough to choose your own freedom. That's all she ever wanted for me. The next day, they visited his grandmother. The care facility was beautiful, all modern architecture and carefully tended gardens. Junwoo's grandmother lay in bed surrounded by flowers, tiny and frail but with eyes that burned with the same intensity as her grandson's. She spoke to Nora in Korean, smiling, and Junwoo translated softly. She says you're beautiful. That I chose well. Nora took the old woman's hand carefully. Tell her she raised a good man. Junwoo's voice roughened as he translated. His grandmother laughed, a papery sound, and patted Nora's hand before saying something else. She says, Junwoo translated, that she can die happy now, knowing I won't be alone. Tears pricked Nora's eyes. This whole thing had started as a convenience, an escape. But sitting there holding his grandmother's hand, watching Junwoo's carefully controlled mask crack just slightly, she realized it had become something more. Something real. But Elliot wouldn't let go. He started small, following Nora's social media, leaving comments that seemed innocent but made her skin crawl. Then he escalated. Showed up at the coffee shop she frequented. Sent flowers to Junwoo's house with cards that said things like "miss you" and "we're not finished." Junwoo's response was cold fury. He's testing me, Junwoo said one night, standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the bedroom, Los Angeles glittering below. Seeing how far he can push before I break him. Don't, Nora said. Please. It's not worth it. He turned to look at her, and the expression on his face stole her breath. You're my wife. He threatened you. How is that not worth it? Because I don't want you to, she struggled for words. To do something you can't take back. Not for me. Too late, he said softly. He crossed to her, cupped her face in his hands. His thumbs stroked her cheekbones with devastating gentleness. I won't let anything touch you. Do you understand that? Junwoo. You're not just an arrangement anymore, Nora. His voice was rough, raw. Maybe you never were. Then he kissed her, slow, deep and certain, not like the desperate kiss in the alley, but like a man who had chosen and was giving her time to choose back. She melted into him, hands gripping his shirt, breath breaking between heartbeats. When he lifted her, she wrapped around him without hesitation, trust replacing fear, heat replacing doubt. Tell me to stop, he murmured against her temple, voice rough with restraint. Don't, she whispered. Please. What followed was unhurried and overwhelming, not just desire, but recognition. As if both of them understood at the same moment that this was no longer an arrangement or rescue or accident. Afterward, she lay in his arms, his heartbeat steady against her cheek. I'm falling for you, she whispered. Is that stupid? No. He kissed the top of her head. Because I've already fallen. 2 weeks later, Nora's friend Maya called with an invitation to a party. Come on, Maya pleaded. You've been holed up with your mysterious husband. Come be social. Nora hesitated. Junwoo had been increasingly protective since Elliot's harassment escalated. But she missed her friends. Missed feeling normal. I'll go, she told Junwoo that evening. But I don't need the guards inside the party. I just want one night to feel like myself. Junwoo looked at her for a long moment, jaw tight. Then he nodded. They'll stay outside. But you call if anything feels wrong. I will, she promised. The party was in Malibu, a sprawling beach house packed with Los Angeles beautiful people. Nora found Maya and let herself be pulled into the crowd, accepting champagne, laughing at jokes, pretending for a few hours that her life was normal. She didn't see Elliot until it was too late. She'd stepped out into the garden for air when he appeared, blocking the path back to the house. He looked different, disheveled, angry, desperate. Nora. Her name was almost a growl. Elliot. She tried to sidestep him. I'm leaving. No. He moved with her, keeping himself between her and escape. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. You're mine, he hissed. You've always been mine. That marriage is a joke, some Vegas quickie with a Korean thug doesn't. Don't, Nora said, her voice shaking. Don't say another word about my husband. Elliot laughed, cruel and sharp. Your husband? Please. You're just his latest whore. He grabbed her arm, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. Nora yelped, trying to pull away, but his grip was iron. Let go. You're going to come with me. We're going to fix this. Annul that farce of a marriage and... A hand closed around Elliot's wrist, large, tattooed, utterly controlled. Let her go. Junwoo's voice was pure ice. He stood behind Elliot, still dressed in the black suit he'd worn to dinner, looking like death incarnate. His guards flanked him, 3 men who radiated barely leashed violence. Elliot released Nora immediately, stumbling back. How did you? My men saw you enter the party. Junwoo pulled Nora behind him with careful hands, his eyes never leaving Elliot. Did you really think I wouldn't know? The commotion had drawn other guests outside. They stood in clusters, watching with wide eyes. Elliot's face twisted with rage and desperation. She came on to me, he shouted to the crowd. This is all a misunderstanding. She called her shotgun wedding husband when I refused her advances. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Nora felt her face flame with humiliation. Junwoo, don't, Nora whispered, touching his arm. Please. Not here. Not in front of all these people. She felt him trembling with barely controlled rage, every muscle coiled to strike. But he looked at her, and something in his eyes softened. Maya pushed through the crowd. There's a security camera, she said quietly, pointing up at the garden wall. It has audio. Would you like me to pull the footage? Elliot went pale. I don't. Maya pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, then held it up. The crowd watched in silence as the footage played, Nora trying to walk away, Elliot blocking her path, his hands on her, his cruel words perfectly audible. Oh my goodness, someone muttered. That's assault, another voice said. Elliot stammered excuses, but no one was listening anymore. The crowd had turned on him, their expressions ranging from disgust to fury. Junwoo stepped forward until he was inches from Elliot's face. His voice was low, deadly, meant only for Elliot to hear but carrying in the sudden silence. You're lucky my wife asked me to walk away. But understand this, I don't need to touch you to end you. Your reputation is destroyed. Your business contacts will dry up by morning. And if you ever come near her again, I won't be so merciful. He took Nora's hand, so gentle despite the violence still thrumming through him, and led her away from the party. She heard Elliot shouting behind them, heard the murmur of the crowd, but none of it mattered. Junwoo was safe. She was safe. They were safe together. In the car, Junwoo drove with white-knuckled hands. I should have finished him, he said finally. I wanted to. But you didn't. Nora covered his hand with hers. Because I asked you not to. You matter more, he said roughly. Than revenge, than pride, than anything. You matter more. The next few days were a whirlwind. Junwoo was true to his word, Elliot's reputation crumbled overnight. His charity board positions vanished. His business partners distanced themselves. Even Vivian cut ties, too afraid of Junwoo's reach to risk defending her golden boy. And Vivian herself? Without Elliot, without her carefully constructed power plays, she had nothing. Her social circle abandoned her when word got out about how she'd treated Nora. Lila moved out, tired of being under her mother's thumb. Nora should have felt triumphant. Instead, she just felt free. One evening, she found Junwoo on the balcony, LA glittering below them like a map of stars. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, pressing her face against his broad back. "Thank you," she whispered, "for saving me." He turned in her arms, tilting her chin up to meet his eyes. "You saved yourself, Nora. I just made sure you had the chance." "I want this to be real," she said. "Not an arrangement. Not a convenience. I want us to be real. We are real." He cupped her face in his hands. "I fell for you the moment you kissed me in that alley. Maybe before, when I saw you looking so desperate and determined. You were the bravest thing I'd ever seen." "I love you," she breathed. His smile, God, his smile, was devastating. "I love you too. More than I thought possible. More than anything." He kissed her under the Los Angeles sky, deep and claiming and full of promise. When he lifted her into his arms and carried her inside, she laughed against his mouth, finally, completely, irrevocably happy. 1 year later, Nora woke to golden sunlight streaming through the bedroom windows and the warmth of Junwoo's body wrapped around hers. His arm was draped across her waist, his face buried in her curls, his breathing deep and even. She smiled, pressing back against him. A year ago, she never could have imagined this, waking up safe, loved, chosen. Junwoo stirred, his lips finding the curve of her shoulder. "Morning," he murmured, his voice rough with sleep. "Good morning." She turned in his arms to face him, struck as always by how beautiful he was, especially like this, unguarded and soft in the morning light. "What are you thinking?" he asked, brushing her curls back from her face. "That your grandmother would have loved to see this," Nora said softly. Junwoo's expression gentled. His grandmother had passed away 6 months ago, peacefully, with Junwoo and Nora both at her bedside. "She did see it," he said. "She knew I'd found you. That was enough." Nora bit her lip, suddenly nervous. "She would have loved what I'm about to tell you too." Junwoo went very still. "Nora." "I'm pregnant," she whispered. He froze completely, his eyes going wide. "You're about 8 weeks. I found out yesterday." She searched his face, trying to read his reaction. Is that okay?" Junwoo's face broke into a smile, a real, unguarded, devastating smile she'd seen maybe a dozen times in their entire marriage. Then he laughed, pulling her into his lap and holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "Okay," he repeated, his voice thick. "Nora, you're carrying my child. He pressed his forehead to hers. "You're giving me everything I never knew I wanted." She felt tears slip down her cheeks. "I'm scared," she admitted. "What if I'm not a good mother? What if—" "You'll be perfect," Junwoo said fiercely. "You're kind and brave and so full of love. Our child will be lucky to have you." "They'll be lucky to have you too," she whispered. "You're a good man, Junwoo. The best man I know." He kissed her then, soft and deep and full of promise. When he pulled back, he rested his hand on her still flat stomach, his expression odd. "You were the best promise I ever kept," he murmured. Nora laughed through her tears. "And you were the best risk I ever took." Later that morning, they stood on the balcony together, watching the sunrise paint Los Angeles in shades of gold and rose. Junwoo stood behind her, his arms wrapped around her waist, his chin resting on the top of her head. She leaned back against him, perfectly content. She thought about the girl she'd been a year ago, terrified, trapped, desperate enough to kiss a stranger and beg him to save her. That girl never could have imagined this, a husband who loved her fiercely, a home that felt safe, a future bright with possibility. "What are you thinking?" Junwoo asked, his lips brushing her temple. "That I'd do it all again," she said. "Every moment. Every choice. They all led me here to you." His arms tightened around her. "I love you," he said against her hair. "My brave, beautiful wife." "I love you too," she whispered. "My dangerous, devastating husband." The sun continued to rise, painting the sky in impossible colors. The city stretched out below them, full of life and noise and chaos. But up here, in this moment, everything was perfect. Safe. Loved. Chosen. Together. Exactly as it was always meant to be.